Did I forget something? Oh yeah, I need to make part 2 of our Let's Draw Vector Art in Moho tutorial. Hey, welcome back to Little Green Dog's animation tutorial series. In this episode, I'll show you how to draw Thumbs Up Cat using the techniques we learned in part 1. If you'd like to follow along, download the activity file from the link in the video description. The version of Moho we'll be using is 14.3. Before we begin, I want to thank everyone for their patience. I know some of you have been waiting a long time to see how I draw vector art in Moho. Drawing Thumbs Up Cat will be a fairly easy lesson, but the process will teach us how drawing for an animation puppet differs from drawing static artwork for a prop or background. As mentioned earlier, we'll be using the drawing techniques we learned in part 1, so if you haven't watched that episode, I suggest doing so before continuing with this one. Okay, enough chit-chat. Let's get started. First, open the activity file for this lesson. This project contains a group layer and 2 vector layers. The group layer is called Overlay, and inside it we have a vector layer called Palette, containing 4 shapes with different fill and stroke settings applied. A palette layer is useful because we can sample style settings from its shapes. The settings may include color, line width, effects, brushes, and even custom style settings. Down here, we have a vector layer called Backdrop, which contains a beige rectangle. Okay, let's add a tracing image. When drawing vector art for puppet rigging, it's a good idea to work out the character design beforehand and save it as a JPEG or PNG file so it can be imported to Moho for tracing. For me, the vector drawing process goes much faster this way. Here's a time-lapse for how I worked out the designs for Thumbs Up Cat. When creating an image for tracing, keep the line art clean, with no shading or coloring. This makes it easier to trace. Now let's import the design by clicking the Add Layer button. Select Image, navigate to the Image folder, and select the file called Thumbs Up Cat Sketch. Let's move this layer inside the Overlay group. Double-click the image layer and check on Don't Render and Ignored by Layer Selector. Don't Render prevents this layer from appearing in a render preview and final render, and Ignored by Layer Selector allows us to click through the layer without selecting it. Set the opacity to 25% and the blending mode to multiply. The opacity setting makes the image transparent, and multiply makes only the dark parts of the image visible, and the white parts completely invisible. All these settings together will make it easier to trace through the layer. Click Apply and OK, and collapse the Overlays group. Make it a habit to keep the Layers window tidy and organized. A neat Layers window makes rigging and animating much easier. Now let's add a vector layer to draw in. First, select the Backdrop layer. Moho always creates a new layer above the selected layer. Just something to keep in mind when adding layers. I'm going to name this layer Head. Right-click over the Head layer and choose Group with Selection. Then name the group layer Head. We'll be adding more layers to this group later. Thumbs Up Cat will only have a few layers, but when the goal is to rig a puppet for animation, it's smart to break out the parts into multiple layers and organize them as we create them. Now let's hide the timeline so we have more room to draw in. Do you remember how to do that? That's right, Control left bracket. Look at you! I'm very impressed. Okay, now we can start drawing. Did I say this was going to be a short one? Sorry, I'm really trying. So, select the head layer and draw the head. Easy, right? Actually, yes, it is. Select the Draw Shape tool and draw a circle for the head. If you're not seeing the shape, make sure Autofill and Auto Stroke are enabled. Now let's use the Select Shape tool and Control-click to sample the orange style from the palette layer. Use the Magnet tool to reshape the circle to fit the design. I like the Magnet tool because it's like using a brush to move points. To adjust the size of the tool, press the Alt key and drag the tool to the left or right. Let's add a layer for the ear. Let's call this Ear L. I like my layer names to be descriptive but short, so I use abbreviations for left and right sides. Now choose the Add Points tool and uncheck Show Bezier Handles. In this lesson, I'm going to avoid using Bezier points. This is partly out of habit, and there's a good technical reason for it, which I'll explain in a tutorial on regular points versus Bezier points. For now, it's enough to know that regular points behave more predictably when animating them using bones. Okay, let's draw a triangle for the ear. Add a point to each side so we can bow them a little. Use curvature to sharpen the tip. Hide edge to hide this line at the bottom. Switch to the Add Points tool, and in the tool options, uncheck Fill so we can draw an open shape. Draw the line inside the ear. That looks good. Let's duplicate this layer. Rename it Ear R and move it behind the head layer. Select the points, flip them horizontally, move them into position, and reshape them to fit the design. Yay, cat's got ears. So far, we've been using techniques we learned in Part 1. So let's try something new. Select the head layer and add a new vector layer. Call it IL. With the Add Points tool, let's draw the eyelash first, because it's going behind the eye shape. Use the Draw Shape tool and draw a circle for the eye. Then draw a smaller circle for the iris. To clip the iris with the eye shape, we're going to use a new Moho 14 feature called Liquid Shapes. Liquid Shapes allows us to apply dynamic merging effects between neighboring shapes in the same layer. There are 4 options for Liquid Shapes, and for our purpose, we want to use the one called Clip. To use it, select the iris shape and click the Clip button. What this does is it clips the area of the selected shape that falls outside of the boundary of the shape directly beneath it. Now, this might look like we're masking, but it's not the same thing, because Liquid Shapes is physically drawing a brand new shape. Now, if you're using an older version of Moho, you won't have Liquid Shapes available, but you can do something similar using a group mask. To do this with a group mask, create the eye and eyelash shapes in one layer, and the iris shape in a second layer above the eye layer. Then select the two layers and group them. Then, right-click the eye group and choose Group Mask, Mask Inside Bottom Layer. This tells Moho to use the bottom layer as a mask for all the layers above it. Now, you may have noticed that the iris shape is covering the stroke part of the eye, including the eyelash. To correct this, double-click the eye layer, select the Masking tab, and check on Exclude Stroke. This tells Moho to leave the strokes out of the mask, so they render on top of everything that's being masked. Liquid shapes and masking are two very powerful features in Moho, and we'll learn more about them in separate tutorials. Cat needs another eye. Let's duplicate the IL layer and rename it IR. Select the points and flip them. Move the points into position and reshape them. Now Cat's got two eyes. Yay! Let's work on his muzzle. Select the head layer, add a vector layer, and name it Muzzle. Now let's draw a triangle for the nose. Use curvature to sharpen the corners. Whoops! I forgot to turn Fill back on for the Add Points tool. No problem. I can select the shape and turn it on in the Styles window. Now draw the muzzle. This may look like an open shape in the design, but I'm going to draw it as a closed shape. This is so I can hide the mouth shape behind it. Let's hide the edges at the top. Now let's draw the mouth. Use Select Shape and the down arrow key to send it behind the muzzle shape. And shade it darker. Let's add a tongue shape. Sample the pink style, and use liquid shapes to clip it inside the mouth shape. Make sure the tongue is beneath the muzzle shape, but on top of the mouth shape. And with the tongue shape selected, click the Clip button. This tells Moho to use the mouth to clip the tongue. If it looks strange like this, just deselect it. Now, when we rig this, we can open and close the mouth to make him talk. As I mentioned earlier, if you're using Moho 13.5 or older, you'll need to use a group mask like we did for the eyes. If you're unsure about how to do this, I've included a version of this setup for Moho 13.5 and 12.5 users to check out and see how it's done. Let's finish the head by making separate layers for the whiskers and eyebrows. You know what? I'm just going to draw for the next couple of minutes while we listen to some tunes. When you're building a character, think about the relationship between the layers. For example, I'm moving the whiskers R layer behind the head. This way, if we were to animate a head turn, these whiskers can move behind the head. Okay, we're done with the head. Let's collapse the head group. Select Backdrop. Add a vector layer. And name it Torso. Select Torso and Head, right-click over it, and make a new group. We'll call this one Bones. Right-click over the Bones group, make another group, and call this one Thumbs Up Cat. Let's add one more group for the body parts. Right-click over the torso layer and choose Group with Selection. Name this group Body. Let's save a little time and add the remaining layers. With torso selected, add 3 vector layers. And name them Arm L, Arm R, and Tail. Let's stack these layers in order. Arm L goes under torso, and tail goes under arm L. Arm R stays in front of torso. Making all these layers and groups may seem a bit much, but in upcoming tutorials on rigging and animation, you'll come to understand why this is important. For now, bear with me. Learning how to break out character artwork will pay off later. Okay, now that we've mastered the basic vector drawing techniques, let's finish this guy. Select the torso layer, and using Add Points, draw the torso. Let's turn Fill back on. Is it time for more music? I think so. Draw the collar. Select arm R and draw the arm and fingers. select all the points in arm R and copy them. Select the arm L layer and paste the arm points. Using magnet and transform points, move the points to fit the design. Now select the tail layer and draw the tail. I know the tail would be easier to draw using Bezier points, but we're going to stick to regular points because regular points deform better with a bone chain. Even though we're not rigging in this lesson, you should always be thinking about how your character will be rigged and animated as you're drawing it. Well, what do you know? All of a sudden, we're done. Let's do a preview render to see how it looks. Hey, looking good, thumbs up, cat. So, is that it? Of course not. We still need to rig and animate this guy. And you know what? I'm going to make a bonus part 3 episode. It's a bonus episode because, well, we really are finished with the drawing part. Right now, I hear music. And you know what that means. I want to thank everyone who became a Team Little Green Dog supporter on our Ko-fi page. When you send a one-time donation, you get access to the team content folder, and you can download stuff. And as a supporter, your name will appear in the credits of the next video. And even if you're not ready to join the team, you can visit our Ko-fi page for news about the channel and upcoming videos. Thanks for watching, stay safe, have fun, and I'll see you soon.